Yo, what's up everybody? Lawler here with some more power rankings. We've got North America today, and we just wrapped up Regional 2 for RLCS X, and we also had Week 7 of the grid. As a reminder for those that didn't watch the video yesterday, number one, what are you doing? Go back and watch those. Number two, appreciate you guys taking the time. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, drop those down below. I'll do my best to get back to those for you guys. But some things to remind you guys on. Any of the teams in the green, if you do not know, have automatically qualified or already secured their spot. When it comes to the international major for this split, because we don't have an international major, it is essentially a regional event worth double points. So Energy, Space Station, and Envy have already secured their spot. And the big thing we're paying attention to is with the grid, whoever takes first overall in the grid also secures a spot automatically into that, so keep that in mind. We also stream every day, essentially Monday through Sunday, except for Tuesday. Tuesday is usually the day I take off. Might mix up a little bit this week due to the rescheduling of the grid being on Tuesday now. But Wednesday night, when this video comes out, which should be Wednesday, but on Wednesday night, myself and some of the other Rocket League casters are actually going to be playing Among Us for Intel Gaming. I think that's at 8 p.m. I have to double check on the time, but again, promo for that should be displaying somewhere on the screen. I'll have a link to that tweet again in the description if you guys want to come join us and hang out with some of the Rocket League casters and myself. With that said, let's jump into the power rankings. North America, a heck of a lot easier than Europe, that's for sure. Except for the top four. The top four can be a whole different argument, but we'll get to that later. At number 10 is going to be XSET bumping out a team. Last week this was Frontline, but XSET with the addition of T. Corral has been phenomenal, and obviously a very small sample size, but that's why they are on the bubble at number 10. They do bump out Frontline, and partially is just due to XSET's performances have been actually pretty dang solid, not only in regionals, but also in the grid. Ever since T. Corral's addition, this has looked a revitalized team. Unfortunate for Alraz that he is no longer with, but there's just been a different level of urgency with T. Corral on the team and a lot of mechanics to boot with that. So XSET, a team kind of like monkeys that we're going to be keeping our eyes on. The same applies to United with Tristan being added. If you guys didn't see my recap video that I put out on Monday, go check that. At the very beginning, I talk about a lot of these roster changes. The one that I didn't go into too much detail at the beginning was this XSET team, because I wanted to save it for the power rankings today. But yeah, XSET's looking pretty solid. We'll definitely have to pay attention to them. At number 9, that's moving down a spot, is going to be Rogue, and this is a team that breaks the hearts of all their fans. It's just a lack of consistency. I don't know how else to explain it. The team's got so much potential, and there's a lot of things that really excite me about them, but they just fail to have that continued performance week in and week out. They show that, yes, they compete some of the best. They were basically the start of Space Station's decline. But since then, it's like you expect them to get wins over some of these other teams, and they just don't do it. So, again, Rogue, until you show me you can make it back into the semifinals and the quarterfinals consistently, you're going to keep getting bumped out by some of these other teams that are. At number 8 is going to be Pittsburgh Knights, a team that has taken a little bit of a hit, which is more so due to the way that I weight regionals. If you look at Pittsburgh Knights in the grid, they actually get tied for 3rd, 4th. They make the semifinals of both of them, but their difficulty comes more so from regionals and their placement there. The teams that are performing better and above them. So with Pittsburgh Knights making the semifinals in both the grids, this decision mostly comes from their results in regionals. Regionals are always going to weight more heavily, plus it is over the course of 4 days and 2 weeks rather than just a one-day event, and their results do not tie as well as the teams that are above them. Regionals are always going to weight heavier, especially when we have a region that is going through it at the current moment. Pittsburgh Knights, though, is a team that I think can fight for that 6th place spot at any given day, and we've seen that. I think this team is doing absolutely phenomenal, and ZPS has really, really made me surprised about how his impact has been shown on the team. I had a lot of questions, and I talk about this almost every week, it feels like. But ZPS is the one that really caught my eye. I think Rodoko and Kinsey together as a duo is fantastic, and that's not going to change anything, but ZPS is really being felt for an impact on this roster. And I think the Pittsburgh Knights organization has got to be happy after the Peep situation. At number 7 is going to be Alpine, moving up 2 spots, and this is part of the reason why things shift down. Alpine was a team that I had some consideration with the lack of performances in the grid, but ultimately and always regionals is going to be weight heavier. And if you take a look at it in the grid, they failed to make quarterfinals, losing to the new resurgence of EU United now that they've got Tristan instead of Hoxer. So Alpine drops there, and then they drop again. So they end up going 0-2 in the grid in the most recent result. But then in week 6, they do end up going to the quarterfinals before dropping to Energy, who goes on to the grand finals. So Alpine is a team that, again, just like many others that are in the same circumstance, they're good, they can compete, but against the guys that are above them, the 1 through 6, they falter. So again, Alpine's got to find a way to beat the guys that have that experience and that talent, which will come in time, I feel. This is a very young roster. This is the first time they're being exposed to the RLCS, but they're very similar to, I would say, Veloce of seasons of the past, where it's their first season in. How are they going to do? They're performing above expectation and have the chance to fight for a land spot, but it is going to be coming down to the very last second. If you look at the results in regionals, they do end up beating Jamal Jabari, Crimson Wings, and the Pittsburgh Knights. They end up making it into the top 8 with wins over Jamal Jabari, Plot Twist, and Rogue. So strength of schedule definitely in their favor, I would say. Losses do come from PK and G2. And then when they make it into top 8, they do go into the quarterfinal match against Kansas City Pioneers, which leads me to number 6. Kansas City Pioneers staying the exact same. This is a team that, again, similar situation to Alpine, but without a doubt, Kansas City Pioneers has solidified themselves as a top dog and are beating all the teams below them. Kansas City Pioneers was a team that was trending up and consistently and have shown results now for 3 to 4 weeks, actually. And this team is very dangerous. If you take this team lightly, they will abuse you. The fact that they're able to take a couple games off of a really hot-looking Envy. Envy's defense is one that is always one you have to be considerate of. But the fact that Kansas City Pioneers is putting up goals is a lot of credit to not only Memory, but also Beast Mode. Memory to me was the one in the way that I credit kind of like the glue that keeps this team together on both offense and defense. But Beast Mode has been popping off, and because of that freedom, Rapid is now able to rotate and get into some awkward situations, which makes it really hard for people to defend against them. This is a team that I will always deem as chaotic but controlled. They do things and make passes. There's times where like there'll be 2 players that like scoop in and Beast Mode will fake challenge. Rapid or somebody like Memory will be in the corner and they'll dish it right back to a fake challenging Beast Mode, who now has a perfect shot coming from midfield because he fake challenged and created that opportunity in that space, and he just puts it away. And even if he doesn't, Rapid comes off the backboard and puts another shot in, and it's like, how are you supposed to defend against that? And it's intentional. You do not make those types of passes without the communication from your team. So Kansas City Pioneers is definitely a wild card, but they are a very solid team. People need to be fearful of this roster. Shout outs to JG7. I know he's super happy about the interview that he got to do on the RLCS as well. A regular in my chat. So congrats to him and the squad. They're performing well. They just got to find a way. Every time they go up against the top 5, not trying to give any spoilers of which teams those are, but you guys should know, they do not win. They get close, but they don't win. That's what's keeping them out. At number 5, staying the exact same, is going to be the Peeps. It's hard to argue at this point. The guys in the top 4 are the dominant. They've been here every single week. They continuously show that they are in the quarterfinals or more. And the Peeps, I think, is teetering at that number 4 spot. Right now, the Peeps is a team that does make it into the semifinals and it ultimately gets smacked around by Energy. If you guys didn't watch that series, make sure there's no children nearby because it was brutal. Energy shuts them out and only allows 1 goal in the final game because they want a Brazil. But to hold the Peeps to literally 0 goals, unless it is one that you are giving them, that is scary. So Energy looked absolutely dominant. But for the Peeps, making it into the semifinals, I think, is a really big deal. They do get a win off a struggling Space Station, but if you look at previous weeks and the results that come with it, you are looking at Space Station still making it to the quarterfinals, Peeps making it to that same spot but losing. You then look at the previous week of the grid as well, from 7 and 6, and it's similar situations. The Peeps get to the quarterfinals, but they don't get much farther than that. I do want to give them a nod because they do it when it matters most in the sense of regionals, but I have to see it consistently before I put them over a team like Space Station or Envy. At number 4, and 4 through 1 was some pretty crazy discussion. I think 3 and 4 are essentially tied right now, and I had a difficult time with this one, so I'm going to reveal it and then going to have to explain this. And I know there's a lot of conversation that's going around with this, so at number 4 is going to be Space Station, dropping 3 spots. This is a team that is number 1 and has been number 1 for a very long time, but it has now been 2 weeks, multiple events, 2 grids and a regionals, and Space Station has not looked to the expectation they have set for themselves. This is a team that's still competitive, still makes it to the quarterfinals or the semifinals, but I'm not talking about quarterfinals or semifinals. If I'm talking top 3, top 4 NA, these are guys that win almost every single week. They are very talented. They are very strong. And I think Space Station, we expect more from them. And this is what makes it difficult, is I want to put them in third because it feels weird dropping them so many spots. But this is the power rankings. Recency bias does come into play. Regionals does hold a little bit more weight. And with Space Station, it feels really weird for me to drop them down this far. I personally want to put them 3 as I know what they're capable of. But based upon the results of the other teams and what is happening with Space Station, they are not performing to the expectation that we have set for them to be at the top dog. There's, without a doubt, no way they can be number 1. But the other 3 teams that are behind them or were behind them have shown they have stepped up. And that's kind of the difficult thing for a team that is in the first place. When you are the first place spot, you're trying to find a way to maintain your current placement, while the teams below you are recognizing through losses like, these are our mistakes, how do we improve upon them? It's much more difficult when you're the top dog to stay at the top, especially when everybody's trying to adapt and change to counter your play style. So it does feel weird. I do think Space Station is technically still third, and they are tied with the team above them. But due to results, I do have the other team listed ahead. Again, top 4 can have a lot of argument and a lot of change to it. But Space Station is going to be my number 4. Part of the reason why is if you look at number 3, it is going to be Envy. They're staying the exact same. Envy is kind of a weird one. And the reason why I have them third and the other teams ahead of them is despite Envy's recent performances, there's some things to take in consideration. Space Station, Envy to me are essentially tied third. I don't think there is a 4th place. I think the top 3 in North America are flip a coin, roll some dice, whatever you have to do. When it comes down to the day, if any of these teams match up against each other, I have expectations it's going to be super competitive in whatever capacity. And that's what's really exciting about North America right now. You have a top 4 that is absolutely dominant, and they're just going to constantly keep making each other better, which is what we wanted. The whole point of this format, this circuit style, is to create parity. It is to make it as competitive as possible. And we are getting that here in North America and honestly in Europe, and it's super exciting. So to just put one team at the top, unless they are super consistent, is very difficult to do, and that's why you have 1 and 2 the way that they are. But the thing that's eluded Envy is the wins. They get into conversation of it, and yes, they have won stuff like the grid, but when it comes to regionals, you're going to give the nod to the guys that take that. Envy does make it into the semifinals and into the grand finals, but you look at their strength of schedule, a big win over G2, another win over Kansas City Pioneers, and then they lose to Energy, which looked unstoppable. You then go into their grid performances in week 7, and they lose to G2 there in the semifinals, and then in week 6, they end up losing in the quarterfinals to G2 as well. So you're taking big losses in head-to-heads to the teams above you, and even though you're competitive, the other teams are doing it more. This I'm going to reveal then for 1 and 2 after that explanation at the same time. 1 and 2 is going to be Energy at 1 moving up, and G2 staying the exact same. A lot of people are going to make the argument that, well, Lawler, G2 won both the grids, but the team that competed against them in both those grids is Energy. Energy won the most recent regional, which I weigh heavier than everything else. And then they also are taking second. And it's not like second is bad. You're still competing at the highest level against the other best teams. For example, if Energy was like first in regionals, second in a grid, and then in another grid they were like 4th or 5th or something, then yes, I can make the arguments of G2's performances of first in grid, and second is above. But because I weigh regionals heavier, they're first in regionals, second in grid, right behind G2 in those performances of victories. I am going to say that winning the regionals over the course of 2 weeks, 4 days, is more important than 1 day performance over 2 weeks. So again, I think arguments can be made, and this is the same thing I was just talking about with Envy, is that all these teams are super competitive at the top, and that's what makes it exciting. So again, Energy, G2, Envy, Space Station, all of you are absolutely phenomenal. Space Station is in a little bit of a struggle. I did see them play in Astro and try to bounce back, but it wasn't enough for the weekend. So Space Station, I'm looking forward to seeing how they adjust and make these changes. They are a team that has never not been in the top 4. They always find a way to bounce back. I'm excited to see what Chrome and the rest of that team does to get back to that spot. As for Energy, G2, and Envy, I want to continue to see how you guys are going to be dominant, how you guys are going to stay at the top and maintain your performance. Because for Energy, if Energy continues to play the way they did in this regional and in the grid, they will be unbeatable. Squishy looks so comfortable with this roster, not afraid to transition with a solo play from defense into offense. Justin and Garrett are now having space being given to them where Justin can just shoot it from the wall, and it's a perfect shot. Justin can play cleanup. He can triple fake defenders. He can do whatever he wants, and they do not miss. So energy looks absolutely lethal. G2's got to still figure out a little bit of things on defense, but it doesn't matter if your offense is that good. So G2 Envy is probably my favorite match to watch right now because it is essentially really solid defense against really solid offense, and you can flip a coin. So I'm really looking forward to what NA's development is going to be as we get into more and more of these bigger moments. But again, North America is cutthroat, and I'm here for it. That's going to wrap it up for the NA Power Rankings for me this week, you guys. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, drop those down below. I'll do my best to get to those as quickly as possible. If you guys enjoy the content, thumbs up or thumbs down. If you dislike it, any interaction greatly helps out with the algorithm on YouTube. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit subscribe and turn on notifications, and we'll catch you next time. Peace.